Hello again. I'm back again and here to discuss the two most recent episodes of RWBY Ice Queendom. A lot's happened. But first, I want to thank my wonderful patrons for making these episodes possible, and a special thank you to my new $10 patron. I can finally afford a lunch! Anyway, I will try and summarise the last two episodes quickly. Inside the dream, Blake opts to distract Weiss after Weiss addressed RWBY as her precious subject, so Yang and RWBY could find their way to an Ouroboros staircase for a cool fight scene. RWBY does the head tilt and is dealing with some confidence issues, while Yang remains very encouraging and protective. While that's happening, there's a tense bit of discourse between Weiss and Blake, but I would like Blake's stances to be explored a bit more. Weiss's sacred space being overgrown with vines is a neat homage to the Overgrown Kingdom and Sleeping Beauty, if that's intentional. They find what seems to be the heart of the nightmare, and Weiss proceeds to interrupt Yang's phone call and eventually acknowledges that Yang raised RWBY and babies her. My parental Yang headcanons are being well fed this day. RWBY gets hurt by the vines and they end up having to bail. After bandaging and a chat, everyone goes away to process and strategize. Yang gets advice from Penny regarding altering the dream to make it more ideal. Juniper advised RWBY about the fact Weiss locks things she finds precious away, and Sun highlights the fact that Blake constantly appearing in Weiss's dream means she is having an effect on Weiss. Everyone resolves, and after Juniper roasts Jean a bit, he gets to come along due to basically being vaccinated against nightmares. With the next episode, we get Jean's dream persona. He has two swords, his regular one and a supermassive ornate one he can't even wield. They disrupt the narrative of the dream by defeating the White Fang and riding the train into the city, where Weiss eventually opens the way for them. This leads to possibly the most epic train ride ever. Seriously, it has no business being this inspiring and cool. This is followed by Jean being sent off to release the prisoners. While there, Juniper give him his winter gear, and we learn that when not singing, Pyrrha is mute, but also has more agency than Ren and Nora, directing Jean to the relic sealed inside the prison, which also happens to look like a fairground. By taking the relic and having left his shield in the door, Jean unleashed a horde of adorably childlike Weisses whose attacks make others feel their emotions. Ren and Nora start parroting rebellious language, and Juniper joined the army of mini Weisses in rebellion, while normal Weiss is having a complete conniption over this. The nightmare eventually infests Ren, Nora, and the baby Weisses, making the latter gigantic and destructive, while Dream, Pyrrha, and Jean are, saved by Nega Weiss, who proceeds to unleash some truly epic magical BS and turn the statue atop the city into a multi-armed mech that starts attacking Team RWBY. Also, the animators are just flexing at this point. And we leave off on that cliffhanger. Of the episodes, the former had some excellent exploration of the cast, their relationships and perspective. It's also nice to see everyone having a good deal of agency and a natural back and forth. I think the action has been fairly solidly consistent. Not at the peak level every fight, but that's fairly standard, and they are clearly saving their greatest stuff for the major battles. The overall plot developments are intriguing. This whole current setup feels more like a near-season finale style thing, so I have no idea how things are going to develop from here. This is especially the case given the "if you fail this time, Weiss might die," which is definitely not something characters want to hear halfway through a series. Weiss's critique of Yang's big sister/parenting skills falls inherently flat given she's copied Yang's aviators, and her complaints of Yang's skills all scream of jealousy. There's obviously a ton of weight to the idea that Blake keeps coming back, even though Weiss and the system and the very structure of her empire try to keep her away. The nightmare is trying to maintain Weiss's Atlas and Jacques-born trauma and scapegoating of Faunus, but despite its best efforts to bury Weiss in these ideas, the fact of the matter is, Blake's mere existence in Weiss's life has begun to change her. The epic Nicholas mech is interesting because I think it might be a sort of fake-out final boss. Not to say it isn't dangerous, but the nightmare was being housed in the Schnee Theatre with Weiss's gown hovering above it. This likely means that overcoming the mech won't directly help in saving Weiss, and may even prove detrimental. Also, as an aside, there is some incredibly messed up stuff about the nightmare compelling Weiss into protecting the symbol of her figurehead status. That ballroom, that dress, those are things that Jacques uses her for, not reflective of her true self, and that being the core of the nightmare makes a ton of sense. Beyond that, the team destroying the constructed narrative by helping the train is an intriguing idea. Weiss could barely process the idea of a train getting through, and when they don't, she stays in prayer, sinking deeper into the nightmare. And despite her claims that the city won't change even if the trains come back, we literally see the entire city's structure change in order to accommodate the train. Plus, more pointedly, it was appealing to Weiss to let them in that caused her to make that decision. The subtext is rapidly becoming text, which makes sense as this place is fueled on dream logic. The fact that Dream Pira seems to have so much more agency and according to her bio sings to comfort the people for Weiss is intriguing. Her constantly aiding Jean could also be reflective of Weiss's view of their relationship, and her absence of general agency as nothing but a wallflower who sings while wearing one of Weiss's dresses. Well, there's a lot going on here, but so much of it is behind the scenes that it can be read a lot of ways. Now onto the baby Weisses. Oh gosh, they are so cute! Okay, focusing. So, the obvious side is Weiss being forced to suppress and lock away her childish feelings. Bunk beds, anyone? It also leads in nicely to how V2 Weiss was more emotive and goofy than V1 Weiss, but more pointedly, it's integral to note that stuff like the entitlement, temper, and a desire for control can be equally, if not more childish than wanting to say, be praised, meet people, and have fun with friends. I.e., the finger quotes childish feelings locked up were simply ones that she couldn't express, or that more likely Jacques and Atlas didn't see a use for and thus were beaten down. Also, the fact that one of these desires is literally just wanting to have fun talking to her family is heartbreaking. And let's do a quick aside about Atlas, because the dream world really is a perfect summation of the inherently broken nature of the nation. Hordes of death bots, a massive invasive surveillance state, those who make waves being locked away. It all looks incredibly imposing, but it's a pressure cooker so fragile that Jean leaving a door ajar let some kids out and it all started falling apart. Weiss said the city won't change, but it did for the train, and if it tries to refuse to change, it just breaks. Honestly, I can't even guess what's going to happen next. Will Ruby's getting spiked by the thorns come into play, or is it just to show the danger? Will Pyrrha's agency develop, and will that shiny sword come back into play? I'm unsure. Will the baby Weisses get a hug? I sure hope so. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you would like to help support these episodes and get early access to scripts, videos and stories, please hit up my Patreon linked below. If you'd like to commission 3D art, follow the link to my Ko-fi or Twitter and we can chat. Thanks for stopping by.